This is Koinonia Coffee House Talk. It is the pre-show for the Koinonia Coffee House that is coming up this Saturday, June 25th, at Wheatfield Academy. It's held on the Wheatfield Academy, formerly Christian Haven, on US 49, just in Wheatfield of Indiana, just north of the tracks. And so we want to let you know that the purpose of this Koinonia Coffee House Talk is to give you a little up close and personal look at some of the people that will be ministering at the coffee house this Saturday night. And tonight, our guests are Frank Guzzo and Steve Campbell. It looks like Frank's having technical difficulties again and won't be joining us, but we have Steve here, which is exciting for me because I've never met Steve before. Frank, I know from back in the day, but we're looking forward to Saturday night, and Steve did tell me today, Frank did tell me today he's planning on being with us Saturday. And so we will be looking at that, or looking forward to that. Let me just give you a little bit of a preview of the coffee house. If you've never been to the coffee house, it's a place where we come together to build relationships with God and one another. The word koinonia is a Greek word that's most often translated fellowship in the New Testament. Unfortunately, the word fellowship does not mean today what it meant back then. Today, we have a potluck dinner after church and we think we're having fellowship. But the best way to translate the word koinonia is with the word communion. And it's talking about an intimacy of relationship between people where people really are connected with one another, are doing life together, where they're receiving and giving back and forth in their relationship with one another. And that's why we chose the name Koinonia Coffee House. The doors open at 6:45 this Saturday. We, as I said before, will have Frank and Steve with us in the two main sets, but we have an opening set where young people who are beginning to learn how to use their talents for the Lord come on and have a whole half hour, 35-minute set. And if you've been to the coffee house and you've seen some of these kids, you will know just how unbelievable their talents are. I'm amazed. In fact, last Saturday night, if you missed last Saturday night, we had Caitlin and Cooper on. They were two young people who were a part of the opening set on Saturday nights. They did such a great job. We gave them the main sets, and they just blew the house apart. The kids that were there, they all did individual solos. And one young 12-year-old young man, Gabe, he did a comedy skit, a short comedy skit that was just stand-up comedy, and it was tremendous. So we want to invite you out. We have donated baked goods that are coming in from Cakes and Cups in Wheatfield and Strachan Van Til Bakery, both in DeMott and up in Valpo on US 30. We usually get so much stuff in that we're sending people home with it. And so for no other reason, come and get some great free bread and baked goods. That we have soda and coffee there for you. And it's just a time to come together to learn more about Jesus and learn more about each other. And so we hope that if you're from the Valparaiso area, it's just a 30-minute drive from the very north side of Valpo. If you're from the Rensselaer area, it's just a 30-minute drive from the very southern tip of Rensselaer. And if you're from Couts or Hebron, DeMott, Wheatfield, man, we're right in your backyard. And so we hope you come out and be with us this next Saturday. One question I get is to how to stay in touch with what's going on at the coffee house. You can keep up with us by going to the Koinonia Coffee House Facebook page. And all you have to do is type in Koinonia Coffee House, and we're the only one out there, I think. and you'll be able to go right to the Koinonia Coffee House page. Be sure to like it. That will automatically allow you to follow us. If you've been at the coffee house, there's a button there to leave a review. Please leave a review. We've received a few reviews lately, and we really appreciate those. I think we're 5 stars with 3 reviews, and we're at 5 stars yet. And so we're looking forward to we're appreciative of that. Also, we have a website, which is the Koinonia Coffee House website at koinoniacoffeehouse.org. There you can do all kinds of things, and as well as support Koinonia Coffee House. And then this has been up on the screen for a while. If you are watching live tonight, the live broadcast, if you're listening on the podcast, you won't see it, but there's a QR code up there. If you take a picture of that QR code, you can download a Android app for the Koinonia Coffee House. So that pretty much keeps things, the things that I need to go over before we get started here. And so we are just going to go right to our interview with a man who I think is going to become a good friend of mine, because he's got a Cubs sign up on the back of his wall there. Over there, yeah. Over there. It's backwards when we're on.
Yeah, I know. That way. There we go.
Yep. So Steve Campbell is with us, and we really appreciate it. He's representing Frank and Steve, the 2 guys with guitars. And glad to have you with us, Steve.
Thank you, Jim. Appreciate it. It's a wonderful opportunity that you've given us, and we really do appreciate it.
Well, we just a couple of guys have been. I don't mean this that you guys are old. I know neither of you are as old as I am. But guys have been around for a while, who've been doing the music scene, and understand. I know Frank understands what 60s style Christian coffee houses are all about. He was a part of those back in the day. I don't know about you.
Well, I had my experience that way as well. So I'm younger than
Great.
Frank, so I'm the baby of the group.
Okay, good. Well, I was talking to my grandson today, and I said, at 70, things start falling apart. And he goes, "You're 70 years old?" And I go, "What, does that sound old? That's not old. That's just 70. I got another 40 years to live here." So anyway, Lord willing. Anyway, so let's get started a little bit here, Steve. Why don't you tell us a little bit about your life right now? I know you're a pastor, and maybe your family, and just a little bit, so we get to know you a little bit about what's going on right now in your life.
Sure. I'm the minister of the Boswell Church of Christ in Boswell, Indiana. And for those that are not familiar, if you go down 41 where you start seeing the wind turbines, you're close to you're close then to Boswell. I'm married. I have 4 adult children. Allison, who lives in Springfield. Becky lives in Valpo. Claire lives in Urbana. And Dan, my son, lives here with me in Boston. Terry, we've been married it'll be 36 years on July 19th. Yeah, Terry, I remembered, okay? July 19th.
Hey, you're doing better than I do.
I wrote it down earlier, but I left that over at the church.
Mine's in my camera. I mean, in my phone, and so as long as the month comes, it says when it is, and I remember it that way. So I'm having a problem getting us both on the screen at the same time here. I do not know what it is. Let me try. I'm going to try something just for a second. Stay with me, Steve, okay? There we are.
Now I'm in a little...
Now we're here. Now we're looking at each other, and we can have a good time. Yeah. And so sorry about that, folks. I'll get this new technology down one of these days. So man, you got quite a large family.
Yes, we do.
Did you grow up in the Boswell area, or?
No, actually, I'm a Brickie. I grew up in Hobart.
Hobart, okay.
Yes.
I grew up in Portage, and
I'm sorry. Oh, wait.
every once in a while, we'd play in the Bricky Bowl, and I wouldn't say we kicked you guys' posteriors. Truth of the matter is, you guys usually kicked our posteriors. Portage was
Oh,
not much of a football team back then.
well,
I remember,
as it goes, that I got cut in 8th grade. I was too small, so
yeah,
I
yeah.
played tennis for 4 years for Hobart.
Well,
So
I got cut from football in I think it was the 8th grade, and so I became the drum major of the band. I was in music a lot when I was in school. So, well, obviously, Steve, you're a pastor, and
yeah,
why don't you share with us just a little bit about your journey and how you came to a point where it made sense to follow Jesus?
I'd be glad to. I grew up in a strong Christian home where music was a major part. My dad encouraged and infused that love of music, particularly church music, for as long as I can remember. He was an elder in the Hobart First Christian Church, and where I grew up. And one day, I asked my mom. I said, "Hey, they're running a class about how to become a Christian. Can I go?" And she said, "Well, you're kind of young, but I want to, Mom." So she allowed me to, and my folks allowed me and encouraged me with that. And I gave my life to Christ on Easter morning in 1968, April 15th. I
Praise
remember the
God.
day.
Wow, that's
And
great.
baptized that night, and from there, about a year later, the preacher's wife asked me to come up and sit next to her on the piano bench before Sunday night church. Yeah, I know. There used to be a time when there was Sunday night church.
Yes, I remember those days.
And she said, "Steve, I've seen how you've handled scripture. Have you ever thought about being a preacher?" That, no, bummer, like my dad, maybe. No. She planted the seed, and with the help of a couple youth ministers along the way, that became my life's ambition. I enrolled at Lincoln Christian College, now Lincoln Christian University, in
Yep.
the fall of 1976, and I have not looked back.
Okay.
And God has blessed. I have no regrets.
Yeah.
Been able to minister Indiana, Illinois, New York, North Carolina. I sang for a while with a full-time gospel group, the Gospel Lights, out of Dobbins, California, for a while.
Wow.
Part of the Good Newsmen for those in Northwest Indiana.
Yeah.
I sang with the Good Newsmen for a while. And then I also sang with Cross Reference, a group that sang locally in Northwest Indiana for a while as well, while I was preaching in Lansing, Illinois.
Okay.
I met Frank.
That was my next question. Did you ever get together with a guy like Frank Guzzo?
Frank and I had our paths cross on a couple of different occasions. When I was singing with the Good Newsmen, we both sang at a gospel fest at Highland High School.
Okay.
And got to meet him in the green room. Didn't really know him real well. I think he was with Canaan at the time. And then I ran into him later when I was at Lansing and at a youth outing. And so our paths crossed on various occasions. And when I was between ministries, my family worshipped in Valpo, and there at Valpo we met Frank, and we've goodness, it's been almost a decade now that we've been singing together.
All
It
right.
doesn't seem that long, but it was. I looked just the other day at our catalog and our very first song, and I put down copyright material at the bottom, and it said 2013. But no, can't be that long. So 9 going on 10 years.
Okay.
And I appreciate the folks from LifeBridge. They gave us the opportunity to use them as a launching point, and I appreciate that. And it's been an interesting ride with different ministries. I was in Hoffman Estates for a while. Now I'm in Boswell.
right.
At 60-mile difference. At both places, it was 60 miles apart.
Oh, wow.
But we managed through the last 5-7 years to be able to go ahead and keep singing, keep trying to book ourselves different places, and then the pandemic hit.
Yes. Yes.
And that has been tough. And I've noticed that since then, churches are not quite as open to concerts as they used to be. And I think that's a loss for churches, quite honestly.
Right. Right. Yeah. God can do a lot through music. I know He really touched my life when I first came to Christ. It was back when we were beginning to allow drums into church. I accepted Christ back in 1971. Really turned my world inside out and upside down, and sent me in a totally different direction. And some of the music that played in the countdown, I don't know if you guys could hear any of that at first, but guys like Keith Green and Larry Norman and guys like that, especially Keith Green, really spoke a lot into my life. And I think I told Frank that if you guys did To Obey Is Better Than Sacrifice, I'd give you guys $100 in your donation can. And I'm hoping he forgot that, because I don't have $100 to put in that donation can right now. But
he hasn't said anything to me, and we've not practiced it, so it would be raw.
All right. Well, then
he'd have to show me the charts, and we'd have to do it raw.
Yeah, I'm safe. I'm safe then.
I really enjoyed in college. I really enjoyed. So You Want to Go Back to Egypt album, Keith.
Yes,
that was a great album.
Yeah, but Bamama Bread, right? Bamama Bread, and in that song, So You Want to Go Back to Egypt. That whole album was just tremendous, and you wonder what Keith would be doing these days if Father saw fit to keep him around. He went home to be with the Lord quite a few years ago, and I just saw something on Facebook. I think it's 20 years. Maybe it's more than that. But it's been, it is much more than that. But it's been quite a few decades since he went home to be with the Lord. But
Melody wrote a really nice biography called No Compromise.
Yes,
that is a good read.
And that's what I love about Keith, is this no compromise, and that need to really, those of us who claim the name of Jesus and follow Christ as his disciples, need to realize that there's a difference between being arrogantly pushing things down people's throats and not compromising. I mean, we can not compromise without doing that, and still show love and care and concern for people, even when they disagree with us, and even when they don't understand us. But within ourselves, we can't afford to compromise.
Right.
If the new covenant tells us to do something, boy, we better be doing it, right?
Yeah, that's right. And with that is understanding that, yes, we're in the world, but not of the world, which means we have to be culturally aware of the culture that we live in now. I think that's a problem that many folks haven't really grasped is, yes, we kind of live in two worlds. We have a responsibility to be culturally aware of what's going around us, so we can speak the language, so we can translate their terms into what the New Testament tells us.
That's right. But we can't compromise and live by their standards. We have to live by the kingdom standards established by Jesus and his early fathers, that God gave the new covenant to, through them and to them, and the people of the first century there, and for us. And so we need to realize that Jesus established a new kingdom. Jesus established a new culture, and we're to live. And that's the thing that should be drawing people to Jesus, I think,
Right.
is
And
how
that's
different we are, but not in an obnoxious way.
right. Right. That's what the Sermon on the Mount is about. It's about this is how kingdom men, kingdom women live. This is our character, the attitudes. This is our practice, what Jesus says concerning all of the 10 commandments. He deals with them. He deals with prayer and fasting
Yep.
and witness.
Yep.
And authenticity. That's why
Yep.
he ends it. That's why he ends it with the sheep and goats and the house foundation.
That's
Because
right.
authenticity is important.
Exactly. Boy, you get a couple of old preachers together, and all we want to do is talk about the Bible, right?
Right.
And some people, they're here to learn about you. I appreciate
That's a
what
scary thought. You said
Yeah.
you wanted a close up. Let's
Yeah,
close them again.
we got a close up of Steve here. Steve, I have a section that I do called the interrogation section. And it's some questions that I haven't fed to you ahead of time. So it's going to put you on the spot a little bit, but I don't think any of them are too tough. So let's just turn to that, and maybe we can get to learn a little bit more who this Steve Campbell is all about.
All right.
There we go.
Okay.
We got the light shining.
I've got one of those lamps here on my desk. So
Okay. All right. Well, it's shining on you just fine. You have a nice halo over your head right now.
It's a
so
overhead light.
That's right. Overhead lights can make us look pretty holy, right?
Yes.
All right. Let's go to the first interrogation question. What is your all-time, not counting the Bible, which is kind of that obviously for all of us who are followers of Jesus, that's extremely number one book and important to us. But other than the Bible, what is your all-time favorite book?
Can I list 7?
Go ahead.
It's Chronicles of Narnia by C.S. Lewis.
Okay. Yeah.
In fact, it's a great thing. I discovered them in college, like a lot of people did.
Mm-hmm.
And I usually took a trip through Narnia once a year.
Okay.
When I had children, we had chapter books at night. I
Yep.
read them to my children.
Yep.
My daughter is now reading Lion, the Witch, the Wardrobe to my 4-year-old grandson, and he loves it.
Oh, I'm sure.
It's starting on a third generation with it.
Yep.
Lewis was such a fantastic writer. I just enjoy it. I loved his sense of humor and the fact that he wrote in parenthetical statements that were supposed to be kind of under his breath as he did it. And
Yes,
that's
exactly.
kind of my sense of humor. So I gravitated to it.
Right. I was going to ask you what you found exciting about the books, but you answered that before I could get to it. So I appreciate that very much. So yeah, those books, I did the same thing. I have, I think I wore out 2 copies of those between reading them myself, reading to my kids, reading to my grandkids, and I have some great grandkids now out in all my family. Bio family is out in Pennsylvania right now, and I even have some great grandkids, 1, 2, 3 that I haven't even met yet. So,
oh my goodness.
Yes, and so it's. I'm looking forward to hopefully the beginning of next year. I'll be able to get out there and get acquainted with some great grandkids that I haven't met yet. So, but I read through those. I remember one time I hadn't been out for a couple years, and my oldest great granddaughter Lily, I think she was 2 years old. I hadn't been out for a year, and I had met her, and we had played and around, and I didn't even think she would remember me. And when I came into the house, she came up and gave me a big hug, and then she ran upstairs. And all of a sudden, she comes back down with this book of parables for children, and said, "Read, Papa, read." And so those are some exciting times when those kinds of things happen to you. Well, let's go to one that I think is going to be pretty easy for you because you're advertising it right now. What is your favorite sports team or teams?
I'm a Chicago boy.
Yep.
Uh, Cubs, Bears, Hawks,
Yep.
Bulls,
Yep.
and that other baseball team too.
Which one is that? Let's
The
see.
one with black. Yeah.
Yeah, the Stinky Sox, is it, or the Stinky, the White Sox? That's right. I'm sorry. All you White Sox fans out here, please don't send me, blow up my inbox.
I'm a Cubs fan. I'm not a Sox hater.
Yes, there you go. There you go. Well, I grew up with a long line of Cubs people in my family, and then after my dad passed and my mom remarried, she happened to marry a guy who probably is the biggest Cubs fan who ever lived. He could give you every stat on every Cubs player going back to the beginning. And so if I didn't at least smile a whole lot about the Cubs, I was in a lot of trouble. Let's look at another question here. Steve, what has been your all-time favorite vacation spot?
Mackinac Island.
Mackinac Island, okay.
And it's a new one for me. My bride and I went up there about 4 years ago for a weekend getaway for our anniversary.
Mm-hmm.
And it's the first time either one of us had ever been up there. And we fell in love with it up there. And we are planning on going back.
Great.
It's beautiful country that God has designed up there.
It is. I had the privilege of pastoring for 6 years on an island in the middle of Lake Michigan in Wisconsin called Washington Island, just at the tip of Door County, just above Green Bay, and or above Sturgeon Bay as well. And it is just beautiful up there. And I was 6 years and loved it. It was something that was very, very special. I was at Mackinac once as a very small child. My parents used to load up the car and we just leave on a trip somewhere. We didn't know where we were going. And one time my dad took a trip all the way around the Great Lakes. And I was probably 6, 7 years old. And I remember as I was sleeping in the back of the car, my dad saying, "Hey, there's the bridge to Mackinac Island. Should we go?" And Mom said, "We've been out quite a few days here. We probably should start heading back down towards Indiana." And so we never crossed. And it was at night, and I was young, and I didn't get to see it. But I'm sure it's very similar. It's much larger island. The island is different than Washington Island in many ways, but the formations, the rock cliffs and the stone beaches and the sand beaches that form on the Great Lakes Islands, like Mackinac and Washington Island, are tremendous.
Yeah.
Well, let's move on with another one here. Let's see what we've got up. What is something, okay, this is one that took me a while when I was asked this question. What is something you wish you could do over again?
I think it would probably have stuck with guitar in 4th grade and not let it go until later in life.
Okay. That's good. I did a similar thing with saxophone and keyboards. I used to play saxophone. I played saxophone, bassoon, and keyboards, piano, and then keyboards in my before Christ days in a rock band called Tombstone Blues, and I kind of moved away from that. I had a really nice Selmer saxophone and sold that because we were starting a church and I was out of money and I had to get money somehow to keep the ministry going. And so we sold that. And then I had a a keyboard that a young lady really fell in love with, and so I gave that to her. And but God is good. I've been praying that God would give me a keyboard somehow, so I could just enjoy music for myself. And the other day, I got a phone call. Somebody said, "Hey, I got a keyboard here. Could you guys use that at the coffee house?" And I said, "Well, we're out of storage room at the coffee house. We don't own the building, but I'll be happy to store it at my house and take it over to the coffee house whenever it's needed." And they said, "That's great." So I have a keyboard sitting in my office. So
Aha.
I can start playing a little bit of music again. So I know what it's like to miss out on some things like that.
Yeah, when Frank and I first started playing, as long as we're talking about guitar,
Yeah.
I played what I call church camp survival guitar,
Okay.
which
3
means I
chords.
knew most of my open chords and
Yep.
I could play a B and hated it.
Yep.
Having played with Frank, Frank says now that I'm no longer church camp survival guitarist. I have moved up to hack guitarist.
Hack guitarist.
So I'm a hack guitarist now.
Well, I remember the old garage band days where all you had to do was know 3 chords and how to play loud, you know. And fortunately, I was in a group that was a little bit better than that. But I think I was in a group before that called the Cream Puff Disaster, and I think all of us knew maybe 5 chords, and you know, had a lot of fun. But
Yeah.
anyway, all right, let's look at another one here. What is your favorite movie or movie series, Steve?
It's a tough one because one of the things that the Campbell family does is we quote movie quotes back to each other. That's how we entertain ourselves.
Okay,
So
all right.
we have a large library from which to draw from. I tell you what, I really like the Star Trek remake series, the 3
Yep.
new ones.
Yep.
I thought they were very well done.
Yep.
And I enjoy things. You know, I like loud noises and things blow up. You know, that's, you know.
There you go.
So,
well, I tell you what, you win. I'm sure you don't like them, but you win the cigar. I've always said the first person that names either Star Trek or Star Wars, I'm going to send a box of cigars to. So, and I've done.
You know,
this
I
for
have no
about-
problem with the first series.
Okay.
The biggest problem is the odd number movies. They were terrible. The even numbers were really good. The odd were awful.
Yeah. You know, for me, movies and TV shows and things like that are a diversion. I have this mind that kind of keeps running things over and over again. And any movie that will take my mind and let me just sit and stop thinking for a little bit is okay with me. So I've enjoyed some pretty not so great movies in the past. But I agree with you. I just got done. Disney came out with a mini series called Obi-Wan Kenobi from the Star Wars series, and I think that was done spectacularly and really true to the whole context of where it fit into the Star Wars series. And in fact, it ended in such a way I had to go back and watch The New Hope again. And
let's see how well they moved.
Oh yeah,
Ian McGregor into Alec Guinness.
Yeah, yes, exactly. You know, and what was really cool is at the end of Obi-Wan, Obi-Wan gives young boy Luke Skywalker a little TIE fighter plane to play with and then leaves the scene, right? And all of a sudden I noticed when Luke takes the R2D2 and 3CPO in to clean them for his uncle, he's playing with that same toy not playing with me. He pulls it down from his shelf, so to speak, and it was something that was his from his childhood. And I'm going, wow, they really did watch the canon well on that
Yeah.
one. And so I love it when they do that kind of stuff. Well, let me stop talking about me and get to something about you here. What has been your proudest moment? Now, I know it's tough sometimes for us as Christians because we know every good thing that happens to us comes from the Lord, and we give credit to the Lord for it. But I think He allows us to glory in some of the things that He's done in our lives. So, what would you say is your proudest moment?
I think, as far as in the realm of ministry, was when we were serving in Poughkeepsie, New York. It's upper, right along the Hudson River, about 75 miles north of the city. Poughkeepsie is Indian for higher taxes. That's what they told us. While we were up there, IBM laid off for the very first time. And since IBM means I've been moved, most of our congregation was gone in 6 weeks' time.
Oh, wow.
And left the area. So we had to really begin to think on our feet. And we chose to replant the church because we knew that new churches grow faster than old churches. Which meant I found a way to work myself out of a job. It took a couple of years to find a church planter and prepare that process. Once that was done, my family and we moved to North Carolina.
Okay.
But they invited me back up for the opening day for the church. And had over 500 people between the two services. Wow. And I cried like a baby through the whole thing.
Oh,
just to see what God did. Being faithful in what we saw as God's will in this and seeing it lay out the way it did. I'd say that was probably my proudest moment in ministry right there.
That is,
see that grow like that.
Yes. I tell you what, that really says something about your heart, Steve, because to realize that, okay, here's my calling, here's what I do best, here's what's happening in this congregation. I'm going to set things up so that I can step aside and God can bring someone else in to do what He's gifted them to do. And have that kind of a humble attitude is you have just shot way up on the likability scale for old Jimbo here. And I think that far too often we forget what it means to really be humble before the Lord. And to be able to say, God, I'm willing to decrease so that you can increase. I'm willing to decrease so you can bring someone else on who can increase and bring about what you want in this place. And that's I pastored for 10 years and then started working with disconnected high-risk kids, and pastoring for me went fine, but it was more like in retrospect, more like wearing King Kong's mittens. And when I started working with disconnected high-risk kids, it was like putting on a pair of racing gloves for me. But having done that, I know how hard it is sometimes for those of us who find ourselves in some kind of a quote-unquote full-time or paid position, to keep that humble attitude. And so I commend you with that, my brother. I commend you with that. Well, now we're going to switch gears, and we're just going to ask you for your most embarrassing moment.
This week?
In the last 2 hours. Mine was when I did a show and the microphone wasn't on. Just a few minutes ago.
Goodness, I am pulling a little bit of a blank because they happen so often to try to
Okay.
limit those. I'd say probably it was when I was in Bible college and was in the Caruso Club, the preaching club, and they'd send us out, and a lot of times we'd be filling pulpits when somebody was gone on vacation.
Mm-hmm.
I went to the town, but I went to the wrong church. It was one of our non-instrumental brothers' churches, and I'm sitting there and
Mm-hmm.
said, I'm your preacher for today. And the guy said, well, that sounds good to me.
They
And I
like
was
to
sitting there, and
preach.
all of a sudden I realized there's no piano. Okay. And I asked him around. I said, oh, no, they're down about 2 miles and on the left.
Okay.
So I excused myself. I didn't make it in time for Sunday school, but that was maybe one of the most embarrassing things in my life to actually go in, introduce myself as I'm your guest preacher at the
Yep.
wrong church.
Yeah, that's good. That's right up there with a friend of mine, Kevin Berkey's most embarrassing moment when he had lost some weight and he was up preaching and his pants literally fell down around his ankles
Whoops.
in the middle of the sermon. So that's up there. Well, Steve, I have one last question for it's about the upcoming coffee house on Saturday night. What would show you that your time at the coffee house was a success and was worth coming out and being a part of?
To be able to share Jesus in the songs that Frank and I have written in a way that we could see it reflected in the people's faces.
Mm-hmm.
Frank and I have we do mostly our own songs. Yeah, we do one or two things that are not ours, but for the most part, what we sing is what God has placed on our hearts, and to see that taken by others and say, "Hey, this touched me. I see God in that." Because most of the lyric, I write most of the lyrics to our songs. Frank does most of the music.
Well, at least I'll know that they're theologically correct if Frank didn't write the words. I mean, that'll be good. Poor Frank, he's not here to defend
He's
himself.
not to defend. Nope, he can't defend himself. Yeah, sorry, Frank, you lost out.
Sorry, buddy, you didn't come on.
But a lot of people journal, and for years I've tried to journal and beat myself up over it when I let it go and come back. And then finally God slapped me upside the head.
Yep.
And said, Steve, how are your daily devotional times touching you? And from that I started writing songs, lyrics. In fact, the very first one I wrote and printed it out and handed it to Frank and said, hey, Frank, can you do something with this? And that started Frank and Steve.
Ah, okay.
And so now we're about 22 songs in our catalog total.
Great.
And yeah, God has blessed us that way. And our desire is to be able to bless others with what God has given us.
Yeah. You know, that there's people who have had the privilege of being in front of people and speaking or singing or ministering in some fashion. There's that moment when you see light bulbs go on over their heads, right? When you go, yeah, they got it. And sometimes I've been fooled. I didn't see any light bulbs go on, and I hear later that people's lives were, really touched and turned around. But when you see that happen, when you see that happen, that is an exciting thing. And that's what the coffee house is all about. It's all about us coming together to grow in a koinonia relationship with Father and his Son Jesus and the Holy Spirit, and a real koinonia relationship with one another, a real intimacy of communion
And
with one
that's
another.
one of the neat parts about that word. It literally means to intertwine our
Yes.
lives.
Yep.
And
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah, and whenever I talk about it, I do that, and sometimes I don't use the term and I forget to, but that's exactly right. I appreciate you sharing that because that's exactly what it is. So, well, Steve, thank you for the time that you've given us tonight and the time you're going to be giving to us Saturday night, along with Steve Guzzo. I take it that Steve is the wild and crazy one of the two of you, right?
Frank is.
I'm sorry, Frank is. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
sorry.
Frank's.
Frank is the.
Yeah.
Forgive me. Frank is the
Yeah.
wild and
I play
crazy
the
one.
straight. I play the straight man most of the time.
Okay. Yep. Yep. Well, I wish Frank could have been on tonight. I wish our listeners could have met him, but please, and Steve, I'm going to ask you just to hang on while I close this
Sure.
out, and then we'll chat a little bit afterwards. So I'm just going to mute you here, and I'm going to move up in the world. Bye. And so, listen, folks, I hope Saturday night. Check out the Koinonia Coffee House. The doors open at 6:45. We're at 12501 Highway or Indiana 49 in Wheatfield, Indiana 46392. Remember, it's only 30 minutes from the very north tip of Valparaiso and only 30 minutes from the very south tip of Rensselaer. God has really been blessing us with some very special times, with some very special young people who do the opening set. We have a young lady this Saturday that's going to be sharing her testimony, and then Steve and Frank will be with us, and I'll be sharing a 10-minute Jimbo's Radical Shorts. But we're really looking forward to having Frank and Steve with us this Saturday. Another thing that people have asked is how can they contact me? You can contact me at 219-406-2023 or my email. I was just giving my email to someone, and when I told them the email, they said, I should have figured that. It's jbwarren at indianajimbo.com. That's indianajimbo.com, JB Warren. You can private message me on my Facebook page, which is JBW51 after you put in facebook.com/JBW51, or at the Koinonia Coffee House Facebook page. If you want to write, you can write to P.O. Box 65, Wheatfield, Indiana, and make sure you put my name on it. I'm not Billy Graham. You just can't put P.O. Box 65, Wheatfield, Indiana. But anyway, we would really enjoy talking with you. If you have any questions about anything you've heard on the live broadcast today or the podcast that you're listening to, or anything that's gone on at the coffee house, if you'd like to learn more about what's happening at the coffee house, what it's all about, please give me a call or message me on Facebook, and I would be more than happy to talk with you a little bit, or even get together and have coffee with you at a coffee shop somewhere. One other question that comes up is how to support the coffee house. What we do at the coffee house, we accept donations for the coffee house, but we do not require them or expect them. But we do have some expenses each week. And so if you would like to support us, I would love to get to the point at the coffee house where we don't ask for donations for the coffee house, and every donation goes to the group that comes in to minister to us. But if you would like to donate on a monthly or a one-time basis, you can go to the koinoniacoffeehouse.org website and just scroll down until you see the donate button that's on your screen right now, or you can send checks to Dynamic Life Development, DLD, P.O. Box Wheatfield, 65 Wheatfield, Indiana, and be sure to put Coffee House in the memo for that. So that pretty well closes things down for tonight. I am so sorry about the beginning and the problem with the sound. I will do my very best to make sure that doesn't happen again next week. It's the first time it's happened to me in a long while, but we'll get whatever caused that fixed and be back with you not next week. I want to remind you that this coming Saturday we have a coffee house with Frank and Steve. After that, on 4th of July weekend, we are not going to have the coffee house because of the holiday. We're going to give everybody a break and give our ministry team a break so they can spend time with their families. And then we're coming back with Anna on the following Saturday after that, the second Saturday in July 9th. And so, listen, my friends, I want to encourage you with one thing. I want to encourage you to go out there and make your life a life that honors and glorifies your Father in heaven through the faith that produces obedience. Settle for nothing less, for excuses. A faith that produces obedience. Settle for nothing less. Why? Father settles for nothing less. Grace and peace, my friends. Grace and peace.